Hi everyone, we're about to harvest this beautiful big fruit which is full of seeds from my Dijonais Epiphyllum hybrid, which has been crossed with a red purple Noid, which means no identification. But a beautiful big red Noid, and you can see it's shiny, it's soft and it's pink, so it's ready to harvest. So we don't actually harvest them until they're showing that they're soft and that they're pink, although some do stay green, don't change colour. But this one is ready to go. So what I'm going to do now is just to use my scalpel, and I'm just going to slice it off here. I don't want to damage the plant. So we'll see if we can cut that just through there. Beautiful. And there we are. So as little damage as possible done to the plant. And there we are. We've got beautiful big hybrid. What you see there on the end, that is actually the remains of the flower, because the seed pod grows above where the flower was. So we'll just break that off. And now we'll go to the next step, which is to harvest those seeds. All right, next step is to slice open this beautiful fruit and see what we've got inside. So we'll just slice it down the center. And smells beautiful. Look at that. Just look at that. That is sensational. And I can tell you now, that is a beautiful tasting fruit. It smells absolutely beautiful. But what we're going to do is harvest those seeds now. So I'm now going to just put them in the bowl. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is to put some water in this bowl. I'm now going to use my teaspoon just to scoop out some of that flesh. I want to try and get as many of the seeds as I can. So we'll scoop that out. You can see the seeds there are still a few left on the inside, so I'm just going to scrape them out with my spoon. Creates a beautiful pink colour in the water. There we are. Okay. And we'll just scrape that out there. We've still got a few left in there. Beautiful. All the seeds are out. So now what I need to do is to mush those up a bit. So I am going to use a fork initially, but I don't want to crush the seeds, so I've got to be quite careful. You can also just use your hands if you want to, but they are kind of a little bit slippery, so if you want to break it up, crush it up in your hands or fingers, and you'll see that we'll just crush all these up. So I'm just going to use my fingers now. And now what we've got to do is the hard part, which is separating all the seeds out from the pulp, because the pulp is no good to us. Get those seeds off my fingers. And what you can see as well is that there are some seeds here floating on the surface. Those seeds are actually useless. They're hollow, which is why they're floating. So they're not going to be any good. So I will actually drain those off. So what I'll do is take it over to the garden, and what I'm going to do is just to swirl the water off so that the seeds that are floating are dispersed or gotten rid of. Okay, so we can see that the seeds that were floating are gone. I'll put some more water in now. Look at that. Look how many seeds are in there, huge. Now, the other part of why I have the fork here is because I'm going to separate out these pieces which don't have seeds attached. And there's a runaway seed stuck to my finger. So we get rid of those. We chuck those out because they're no good. So we gradually, there's a seed in there, so I might try and separate that seed if I can, get rid of the pulp. And this is a bit of a process now, is just to get rid of all the pulp that has no seeds and remove it. So we do this it's like a rinse and repeat of getting as much of this pink fruit or pulpy fruit out, which doesn't have any seeds, and just remove it. Here's just how I swirl. What I'll do is spin this around, and we'll see the seeds will all go into the center at the bottom, and you can see the pink parts are all on the outside. So I can tell I'm going to have well over 1,000. He's got a few floaters there, and you can see those pink parts are just going to go over the edge with my help, because they're basically no good. Not very tasty either, as it happens. So I'll spin it again. Around we go. And we've got a few floaters there, but floaters can go over the edge. It's really the pink parts that I want. Okay, so time for more water now. And mush, rinse and repeat. All right, so again, stir and separate. So we'll just stir it around, and then I'll float off the pink pulp or use the fork to extract it. So we can see here, there we go. I can use that to scoop off some of this pink pulp. Again, I don't care if I get the occasional seed. It's got a few. All right, there we are. And the seeds that are viable, they will stay at the bottom. So if seeds start floating, they're dead. They are dead seeds. They're good to no one, so you may as well get rid of them. There we go. So we nearly got this down to where I want, which is when we can then start separating off these seeds onto a paper medium and dry them out. And then once they're dried out, I'll end up putting them in some test tubes. So there we go. Now got a heap of pink flesh all over my table here, but we'll swirl that around. And I think I'll just tip that out at this stage. Okay, so we're getting down to the nitty-gritty, aren't we? We've now got really just a few bits of pink flesh in there, which we can extract. We've still got a few floating seeds, so sometimes as they're released from the pulp, you'll find that some of the ones getting released are actually dead or hollow or useless, so they float. So we want to get rid of those because they're never going to produce any plant material. And that is actually a seed that has started and turned into a mini epicactus. But because that was inside the seed pod, and that's what happens sometimes, seeds do germinate and start little plants inside the seed pods. So we'll just get rid of that. All right, I think we're good to go. So now we'll move to the next stage, which is putting all of that on paper. All right, so I've laid down 3 thicknesses of tissue paper, and I've chosen the ribbed ones, and you'll You'll work out why at some point, but what I'm going to do now is spread these like so. That was a bit heavy there. And there we are. So now I can tell you now there's at least 1,000 there. And the next step is going to be letting those dry. So we'll let all of those seeds dry, and then we're going to remove them from the paper once they've dried. My laborious task of counting. How many seeds did I get? Okay. So if we have a look at these seeds, if I pick these ones up, you can see that they're actually encased in like a gel, and that gel is to protect the seeds, and once they dry on the paper, that gel is going to stick to the paper, so when I scrape them off, they're going to bounce everywhere. So we have to be very careful. What I've got here is our dried seeds. I'll just bring those a bit closer. So you can see we've got quite a lot. So what I'm going to do now is I put them into a high-sided container, and then what I'm going to do is just to scrape them off. So I'll bring the camera a little closer so you can see that process, and you'll be able to see what I'm doing up close. Okay, so what I do now, because these seeds are stuck to the paper because of that mucilage, we can then just scrape them off the paper, and they then end up down below in the dish. And it does take a little bit of time. It's not going to damage the seeds or anything, so sometimes I might even just stretch it out by hand, and that's why I use the ribbed paper. Just makes it a little easier to get them off. You can just see there, and at the end of it, I expect we will have quite a lot of seeds. You can see even down there at the moment, in the base, you can see all the seeds just sitting there. So what we'll do is come back once I've finished. Okay, so what I've got here is a test tube which I filled with all the dried seeds, and you can see there's probably about 1,000 seeds there, so absolutely heaps. So next video will be about what we do with the seeds then. How do we plant them? Do we soak them in water beforehand? And how long should we expect before we end up with plants like you can see behind me? So if you like this video, like, subscribe to our channel and share it with your friends. Thank you very much from Paul at Tropical Treasure.